is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they even did it and done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team done.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by my company, The Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. My co-host, Daniel Alameda, is in California still, so I'm riding it solo today. First and foremost, want to start the show off by wishing everyone a happy New Year's Eve. I hope that everyone spends a lot of time with family tonight. Be safe. Don't do anything crazy. But we got a lot of stuff to get into. A lot of stuff to talk about. But before we jump in all that, do us a favor. Give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from TWSN Studios. I'm joined right now by a special guest. We're going to bring him in, Parker Blake. I want Parker to join us while we are discussing the various happenings around the league, so on and so forth. Park, how are you doing, my man?
Great, man. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. You know, I'll be honest with you. Tempur-Pedic, I just recently went out and got myself a Tempur-Pedic bed. And it was quite honestly the best purchase I've ever made. It has changed my entire thought process of sleep, right? And what it actually means to get a good night's sleep. So definitely recommend Tempur-Pedic. I want to jump right into it though, man. I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Okay. You know,
right.
I had an opportunity to sit down with Parker. You know, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago at this point.
Maybe a week and a half ago, yeah.
A week and a half ago for dinner. It was great to meet him and stuff like that. Great to talk about. We talked about a lot of the prospects coming out of the draft this year. One that we really didn't dive into was Shedeur Sanders. I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders because the question is, at least for me, did the bowl game hurt Shedeur Sanders? Parker, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Watching that bowl game, I understand, you know, Shedeur Sanders has all the talent in the world, right? Or as they say, all the potential or the intangibles to do things. For me, if I'm willing to spend a top 5 pick, top 10 pick on a quarterback, I want my quarterback to be able to navigate muddy pockets, right? I'd want my quarterback to be able to navigate the muddy waters, if you will, and not always need to operate out of a clean pocket. I would want my quarterback to be able to handle stressful situations or handle less than ideal situations, because to me, that's the measure of a franchise quarterback. To me, I'm looking at a guy, right, that's probably ideally going to come into a team that's not that good. That's why they have such a top pick. When I watched Shedeur Sanders in that bowl game and throughout the season, it felt like, I'm going to sound crazy saying this, it's very similar. It reminds me a little bit of Trevor Lawrence, but I felt like Trevor Lawrence was a little bit more polished. But it was always interesting to see how they performed when things got tough, when things got real hectic in there. Because let's say the Giants were to draft Shedeur Sanders, he's gonna be able to have to be able to use his legs. He's gonna have to navigate the pocket. He's gonna be able to climb the pocket. He's gonna have to make plays outside of the structure of that offense. And I look at it and I say, I just don't know how Shedeur will handle that. He's not the most vocalized guy, right? He's got his dad typically as his personal spokesman, right? I don't know. I think I just expected more from a Shedeur Sanders playing in a bowl game, right? And I guess that's why a lot of quarterbacks don't play in bowl games, because you don't know how that performance is going to look, or you don't know if that's going to hurt your draft stock, or you don't know if you're going to get hurt in the process. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, though, on Shedeur Sanders, though, Park.
Yeah, no, the bowl game thing's always interesting because really, no matter what point in the season it comes, unless it's championship or semifinal football game potentially, should one game impact your stock dramatically. And I don't think I saw anything in that bowl game that was like new or surprising. He performed as expected, in my opinion. Maybe a
Really?
little bit below what he's done all season. But I just haven't been impressed with his film since he's gotten to Colorado. Like he's never been a prospect that's jumped off the screen and excited me. Like I can see what people can like about his game and what people might be projecting from his, from his performances on film, but I've never been a huge fan of what he's able to do. I mean, this quarterback class overall, just because you're the top guy at the position that's usually very highly touted and revered in a class, doesn't
Mhm.
mean you're the top guy in the class or that you deserve to be drafted as high as that player should go. I mean, we've had drafts where there's only been one quarterback in the first round, and I think this should be a year where that happens, though I don't think it will be. I think we'll still get 3 to 4 in the first round, which I just think is crazy just looking at this quarterback class. But Shedeur is who he is, and if you've watched any of the games, I think he's very consistent, which is like a pro for his game for me. Like at least you know what you're going to get out of him, but you're not going to get anything too exciting. He's going to take some deep shots. He's going to throw some check downs and ignore the intermediate part of the field. He's going to scramble around to get himself into trouble, kind of like Caleb Williams used to do. Except Caleb Williams is a lot slipperier than. It's a lot more slippery than Shedeur is, in my opinion. I don't think Shedeur has that ability to
Mhm.
make these guys miss out on sacks. So anyway, overall Shedeur just hasn't been a prospect that's been exciting to me. I do think he's one of the more stable prospects that has that higher end upside in this class, so that's
Mhm.
why he's kind of landing where he is in the grand scheme of the quarterback conversation. But overall, the ball game shouldn't throw you either way. But I just think, I mean, if that really turns you off, it's just because it was a bigger game on TV that people were paying attention to, and you just haven't been watching Colorado this season.
So for me, I like and I think this is the first time that we've sort of had different stances a little bit. I've watched Shedeur Sanders for the last 2 seasons, and to me, it was always the pocket awareness was never amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And for a guy that we're talking about as being the first quarterback off the board, ideally you'd hope that that would improve. Last year, you had the excuse that obviously, um, the offensive line wasn't great, right? They went out added some talent to it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the unnecessary sacks. Joe Burrow said something a couple years ago, and I hate to bring up Bengals related stuff, but he just tipped the hat. Joe Burrow said there are such things as good sacks and then bad sacks. To me, Shedeur takes a lot of bad sacks. He puts himself in situations that he doesn't need to be in. And I think it is to what you talked about. You're not going to outrun these defensive linemen, especially when they're coming at you full steam ahead. It's not like how it was when you were at HBCU, essentially, where you were able to just spin around and think you're going to
Mm-hmm.
run and juke these guys out the whole 9 yards. You're losing good yards. I've seen Shedeur Sanders multiple times this season take his team out of field goal range, out of the ability to get points on the board, because I feel like there's often times where he looks for the boom play. The reason why I brought up the bowl game, obviously, it was the latest performance we saw of him, but the question has to be asked: if you're an NFL team on a bigger scale, on a big game like this, right? You had Travis Hunter also playing in that game, which was a little mind-boggling to me. To me, it's like, okay, well, when things get rough for our team, because there's a reason why we're picking in this spot,
Yep.
is Shedeur going to be the type of quarterback? And it's what I think every team should ask themselves about their quote-unquote franchise quarterback. Is Shedeur going to be the type of quarterback that can uplift the talent around him? Can he sneak us out an extra win or two? Because to me, that's going to be what's going to determine his level of success here in the NFL. I don't know. I evaluate the quarterback position a little bit differently. Obviously, I like to watch the film, but I also like to see the mental makeup of quarterbacks and see how they respond to adversity. Because in the NFL, there's so much adversity. Life is not perfect in the NFL. You could play your greatest, you could be amazing, but if the team is not all that good, well, are you going to be able to weather those storms? Are you going to be able to be the CEO of the team? That's my thought process part. I don't want to talk too much about Shedeur Sanders, but that's just my thoughts. So hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, for sure.
I feel like I would have serious concerns as an NFL franchise thinking about drafting Shedeur Sanders, and I feel like I've made Shedeur Sanders a topic of this conversation a lot on this show. Right, we've talked about him a lot through the year. We've been doing the show for 18 weeks basically, and we've talked about him a lot. And for me, I think that there's just a lot of questions need to be answered. It's going to be I don't expect Shedeur Sanders to perform at the combine at all, but I think it's going to be a very interesting dialogue throughout the process. I really believe it. And no doubt in my mind, Deion Sanders will be, working his magic, his connections, the whole 9 yards, and trying to keep a lid on the thing as much as possible. But I don't know. I mean, I talked about, I think about Shedeur Sanders, and I have questions about him. I don't view him as a potential franchise quarterback personally. I actually have question marks about this entire quarterbacks class. If you are a NFL team with a top pick and you're in need of a quarterback, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with this class. I don't know if there's anybody that has sold me on this class. Next year's class looks a lot better, but this year's class, we'll see how it shakes out. If you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from TWSN Studios Park. I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 14-2. Sam Darnold has put himself in the MVP conversation. Vikings fans rejoice everywhere. No one expected this. No one saw the season coming. Brian Flores done a great job with the defense. Kevin O'Connell getting the most out of his quarterback. The Vikings have a decision to make, Parker.
Yes, they do.
And depending on what you want this thing to look like, if you think that J.J. McCarthy can replicate the same success that a Sam Darnold has, and all that we've heard, before the injury was J.J. McCarthy looked great. J.J. McCarthy was throwing dimes in practice. Obviously, he had some interceptions as well, but he seemed like he was grasping it. They said J.J. McCarthy looked like possibly the most pro-ready quarterback in his respective class because of how he operated at Michigan. So the question now becomes, what happens with J.J. McCarthy? What happens with Sam Darnold? Is this a flash in the pan type year? Or has Sam Darnold found a way to put it all together under Kevin O'Connell, under the system? So the question is, it's kind of a twofold thing. Do we think that this success is, can be replicated? And do we think, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, right, Parker, let's say you're general manager, owner, what do you do?
Yeah, no, the most realistic thing that they should do as an organization should be to franchise tag Sam Darnold and say, hey, you're going to show us that you can do this again, and then we'll give you that extension. I mean, this is a guy that was drafted 3rd overall. Everyone loved his profile coming out. He was supposed to be this big shot. He just kind of had a rocky journey to get there. So maybe it's just the resurgence of these quarterbacks that have needed to find new situations and needed to kind of get their experience in the NFL before they really turned out into something. And we've been seeing that a lot lately with a few of these guys. But I think if I'm the Vikings, I think you tag Darnold and you say, hey, JJ, we're gonna go out. If he's able to do it again for a year, then we'll have to make a decision. Maybe we keep you, maybe we don't. However, that has to go. But you let Sam Darnold at least prove it to you before you just get rid of a JJ McCarthy, because what you don't want to do is sacrifice what you can consider right now at least a relatively quote unquote known commodity in Sam Darnold, right? You've seen what he's done on the field for you, and you don't expect that much of a regression coming into next year. But you also don't want to just ship out JJ, because if you do, and you have a guy like Sam Darnold come into next season and really just flop or fall out, then you've now just burned 2 bridges and you're starting back at square one. So I think it's a franchise tag Sam Darnold, and you kind of let it ride out, let him kind of compete with the job with JJ next year. But I do worry about that turning into a potential situation like we're seeing in Atlanta, and that I think would be the worst case scenario.
But do you worry about potentially stunning his growth? I mean, JJ McCarthy's growth. Because JJ McCarthy, by all metrics, the reason why he was drafted was because people said they believed he could be pro ready. So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, JJ McCarthy's not a guy that probably needs to sit on the bench. JJ McCarthy's a guy that probably could go out there and be a starter. And if Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer and this Vikings team is the quarterback whispering team that people believe them to be, it might make sense to just see if, I guess they can replicate this with JJ McCarthy, I think. But I think there's a reason why you spent the pick that you did. But it's tough. It's tough to move off of. It's tough to move off of a Sam Darnold after the season that he's having. It really is rough. You brought something up interesting. You said if you were the Minnesota Vikings, you'd franchise tag him and then let him play out this year. For me, I believe maybe you should franchise tag the guy. But what if you franchise the tag and you say, hey, listen, teams, if you want him, come get him. Call
No, I
us.
agree. 100%.
Tell us what you want. Tell us what you're willing to give up for a Sam Darnold. Because with the play that he put forth this season, is it out of the realm of possibility you can get the first round pick for Sam Darnold? Maybe. Is it?
I don't think that's crazy, and I do wonder. I think as Sam Darnold's agent right now, you're hoping that the Vikings just set the price, at $40 million on the franchise tag, and then let you just go shopping and say, hey, if we can find a situation that Sam Darnold would like to be in or wants to be in, that's going to get us more than that 40 next year, then yeah, we'll ship ourselves out there. We'll head out and we'll wash our hands of it, move on to JJ McCarthy. But I do think an ideal situation would be, letting them both stay on the Vikings next season. But I think as the Vikings, you're not necessarily opposed to moving a Sam Darnold, especially if you can again put him on the tag, get that off your books. Now you're kind of resetting with that younger guy who is extremely young. That was one of the biggest pros in his profile as a prospect. Is how much time he has. That's why I'm not necessarily worried about him sitting an extra year or two. But I think long term, if you're not looking at Sam Darnold getting a 5-year extension after the franchise tag, then I think you are more than open to moving on from him, and that's the situation I think they're in. So,
and I'll be honest with you, if I'm a team out like the Giants, like I don't even know if I hear there's no chance in hell this had will happen. No chance the Jets will happen. No chance. No. Just the way that ended.
They're out of that market for sure.
I know, right? But here's a team that I do want you to consider, Parker. What about the San Francisco 49ers? What about the Niners?
That'd be a fun landing spot, especially with the Shanahan system. They're gonna have a 4th place schedule next year. I mean, that'd be a very favorable situation for a guy to pick up, and then again, they're just kind of in a similar situation, but not so similar with Brock Purdy next year. Is that them moving on from Brock? Do they run the 2-quarterback system next season and just have a lot of money tied up there?
Park. I believe has Brock gotten the contract? I don't think Brock's gotten his contract yet.
No, he's not.
He's gotten this nerve issue in his elbow. It's sad. A guy like Brock Purdy has done great for you the last couple of seasons, and it's like I've worked all my life to get to this point where I'm going to, make money because I've taken this team to a Super Bowl. I've been a perennial playoff team, and then you have this unfortunate injury. Your wide receiver essentially tore, I think he tore his ACL, the guy that you guys gave the big contract to, and Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels, whatever. This roster is going to go through a little bit of a interesting period because they kind of built this roster with the win now mode mentality. But the question now becomes, all right, has has Brock Purdy reached his ceiling with this 49ers team? I feel like since Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers, he always had these quarterback projects that he wanted to take on essentially and build and put them in a right position to be successful the whole 9 yards, right? And guess what? Well, that happened, right? He's able to do that, but there's only so much you can do. You went out there, you traded for C-Mac. You did all that stuff. You tried to put together a championship level roster, and for whatever reason, it hurt. It didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. A lot of the pieces that you went out there and grabbed or the pieces that you added onto got injured. My thought process through it all is maybe it might make sense for Sam Darnold to go back to Kyle, because ideally wherever Sam Darnold decides to land, if he doesn't get franchise tag, he's got to want to put because he's going to be the most sought after quarterback on the market. He's got to basically say, hey, I want to go to a team that has the structure in place, right, that will allow me to be successful. Like, we could be witnessing sort of like a free agency unlike any other for Sam Darnold if he actually hits free agency, where he goes out there, he vets teams, he talks to teams, they wine and dine him, They talk about the entire structure. Like Sam Darnold is going to have his pick of the litter.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be able to go out there and say, hey, listen, let me meet with the Niners. Let me meet with the Giants. Sell me on what this thing is going to look like. Talk to me about the offensive structure. Talk to me about the pieces that are in place. And I think that's a very cool position for him to be in personally. I think it's a very cool position. But when we start talking like that, because you don't go from the Vikings where the offense is super structured. They have a passing game coordinator, a head coach that's an offensive minded, a great offensive coordinator. You don't go from that saying, well, I'm just going to go to a team that has none of that in place. You know what I mean? Like, I think it all has to make sense. That's just
that's why. He's in a great spot, right? Where we talking about a guy like Shedeur or a guy like even Cam Ward coming out, and it's like, oh, this quarterback's going to end up on a bad team, and it's how they're going to be able to handle themselves on a bad team. But now you have a guy like Sam Darnold who's been in the league. He has experience in the league, and now you're gonna set him up in this position where even if he does get franchise tagged, he's still going to be able to go around and have all of this extremely high market value that teams are going to be willing to come and get him from the Vikings for. And I don't think the Vikings are going to be opposed to that at all. And that's where I think a team like the 49ers is really interesting because that's a team that feels like it has a lot of its pieces in place, like you talked about. It feels like it's a situation where he can go in there. It doesn't have to be necessarily the guy. He just has to be the facilitator of that offense within that, high-level team already. And that's why I like, looking at teams like even potentially the Pittsburgh Steelers for Sam Darnold, where they have, a very unique quarterback situation where they don't necessarily even know internally what they're going to do next season. If you have a guy like Sam Darnold step into that building, are you keeping a Russell Wilson? Are you keeping a Justin Fields? Are you moving on and kind of changing what your quarterback looks like? And then again, you have teams like the Browns even, who are looking for a quarterback. And does Sam Darnold hate that situation? They have a lot of fun pieces there as well. So I don't know, his offseason journey is going to be a blast. And I think Sam Darnold, I selfishly hope it's a decision that isn't made too early because you want to kind of see the saga play out, see all the drama unfold of him testing the market and exploring his options. But I'm really just interested to see where he lands because there is a non-zero chance that he's just in Minnesota again next season.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that there is a chance that does happen, but at some point you got to start seeing what you got in JJ McCarthy. Even if you wind up losing a Sam Darnold, I think the most practical way to go about it is franchise tagging Sam Darnold, trading him, seeing what you can get for him, and force one of these teams' hands. But I think you should also allow Sam to dictate where he'd want to go. You also want to do right by him and put him in a situation where he's going to be successful. But there's a lot of season left to be played out, especially for the Minnesota Vikings, right? They have playoffs, right? Is this going to be able to be replicated in the playoffs? I can't wait to see if Sam Darnold is going to be able to reestablish himself in a big way in the league. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. I want to head on over to the NFL, talk more about NFL stuff. I want to talk about the Colts, man. Colts fans are in shambles right now, respectfully. They're talking about firing Chris Ballard. They're talking about how this has been a colossal F up. And I tend to say sometimes fan bases can overreact. But I think that they're pretty spot on with this. I think that somebody has to answer for this. Is it Chris Ballard? Is it Shane Steichen? I have no idea. But Parker, I want to get your thoughts. Who do you think is to blame for the Colts collapse? This is a team that had everything in front of them. They had everything in front of them. And they just found a way to squander it away. You lose in a game that was a must-win to the Giants in New York, and the Giants have never won a home game this season. Makes matters worse, you lost to Drew Lock. You made Drew Lock. You made all Malik Wright's pre-draft talk about Drew Lock being a franchise quarterback correct. You made me look great. You made me look great. I want to get your thoughts on him. What do you think about the Colts, this collapse? Who's to blame? Park, what say you?
I do wonder, because the Colts for the last few years have had a very specific off-season team building model, right? They've brought in, they've been taking swings on these guys that have extremely highly rated athletic profiles. They've been getting the guys that kind of check the, measurement and testing, boxes, right? That's what they've cared about. And they said, hey, we'll bring these guys in, even if they are raw, and we'll develop these guys into NFL players and we'll maximize their upside because, with these athletic profiles, with these frames, with, the explosive plays we've been able to see on tape, XYZ, et cetera, we can make these guys into quality NFL football players. And what's happened, in my opinion, is that just hasn't worked. Like they've had a couple hits, they've had a couple flashes in the pan, but it's not something that they've been able to do and make a consistent force for their team. And so then when you get to Sundays, you just have all these guys that everything hasn't necessarily come together. And I think Anthony Richardson is kind of the epitome of what all of those different players on their team have been, where it's, they get out there, they can have great games, here and there, but they're not putting together consistent performances, and they're easily found out because they're just not well developed enough to have more of the complex, nuances that these other teams are able to roll out on Sundays. And so when teams are able to figure you out, there's only so much you can do. And then you have, the quarterback battle situations that they've had, throughout the season, not necessarily a battle, but just kind of the weird ups and downs of that room. We've seen a little bit of Flacco. We've seen a little bit of AR. Like it's just, there's been a lot of weirdness going on with the Colts. And that's why I feel like this has all been self-inflicted. And I think it has to start from the top down if you're going to make changes. And the reason you make changes is because you don't believe in this process anymore. The reason you make changes is because you say, we need to change the direction of where this team is going and how we operate on a day-to-day, month-to-month, season-to-season, process. So we need to change that whole system up. And so if in that case, it'd have to go top down. It's not a head coach issue at that point. It's a GM problem. And I think it's more, this team is sadly enough kind of on their way back to resetting again when they should be in a position with Anthony Richardson going into year 3 where they're starting to really catch their stride. So it's just kind of the classic example of, hey, we got a guy we thought was going to be our franchise guy. We put weapons around him that we liked, and it just didn't work.
I have a question for you. How much do you believe in Anthony Richardson?
I always said he was a boomer bust guy, and his biggest issue with me coming out was, will that style of play hold up? I had the same question with Josh Allen, and it's just, if you can't stay healthy and you're playing like that, your team wants to use you like that, it's not going to work. And that's where I think he's just kind of fallen off at this point. I don't know if it's redeemable with the Colts.
Yeah, I feel like they're in a spot where they have to play him. They have to see how the thing works. I mean, listen, the returns have been, ever since they reinserted him into the lineup, they've been positive, right? But the issue with Anthony Richardson is the durability for me. For me, it's the durability. It's obviously you want him to progress as a passer. Will that happen? We'll see in year 3. But I look at it and I say, hey, listen, you got to be out there for your team. One of the best abilities is availability. And if you're not available, then what are you doing? Right? It's too much, Joe Flacco for my liking. Right? And if you're the Colts, how do you approach this offseason? Do you say, hey, we need to bring Joe Flacco back, or we need to get another veteran quarterback in here that can win us games? Because we know, of course, our quarterback is going to miss games at some point. And that's a real thing. They have to essentially go about the process of, we need to go add another quarterback for the just in case factor. Hell, maybe the Colts are being on Sam Darnold.
That's what I was about to say. It's like, I almost wish the Colts were in a position where they could grab a guy like Sam Darnold, but then it's like, if you grab a Sam Darnold, you're quitting on Anthony Richardson, in my opinion.
Yes.
He's got what, 2 years left on his rookie deal if they take the option, or 3 years, I guess.
3 years,
into year 3. And so maybe you give Sam Darnold the 3-year extension. You ride AR out for 3 years, developing behind him, and you see what happens in that 5th year between the two quarterbacks. If AR beats him out in the 5th year option or not. But then I don't know. That's where I think if you go with Sam Darnold, you've already made the changes, and the new staff, the new faces you brought in want Sam Darnold and are already out on Anthony Richardson. If you don't move on, I expect it's because you didn't really make changes up top. So that's where I think it goes for me.
Correct. I agree with you. I think for the Colts collapse on the season, I think Chris Ballard has to obviously wear a lot of blame. A lot of people thought that the Colts were going to make it this year. A lot of people thought that the Colts was going to be the year they took the next step forward. And in a lot of ways, they probably overachieved a little bit. But for Chris Ballard, I mean, it's just a crappy situation all around, because somebody has to wear the blunt of the blame for how the season has turned out, especially down the stretch here. and especially the Anthony Richardson pick. Does Jim Irsay view this as a GM problem? Does he view it as a head coach? It's not out of the realm of possibility that Shane gets fired. To me, it's not a realm
Yeah, I agree.
possibility. This was a colossal f up, especially when you're considering some of the names that are still out there. Maybe they're going to try to take a swing for some of these guys and see what can happen. But if you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. When we're moving over to the Bengals, man. I'm moving over to the Bengals, and question is quite simple for me. Should Joe Burrow be the NFL's MVP? Listen, the most valuable player award, it should be about who the most valuable player is to said team. It should also be about the player that is putting up the numbers to, justify being said MVP. Now, somewhere along the lines, records have taken more of a focus in it. Like I know there are people out there that are saying Joe Burrow shouldn't even be in the consideration because the Bengals have, now they're at 500, but most of the season they had a losing record. And that's fortunate as that is, that's just the way the cookie crumbles in the league. People correlate whoever the MVP is with the team's record. And they're saying, hey, the team should have a very, very good record, should be in the playoff hunt, should be firmly square and positioning to take the next step. And for as amazing as Joe Burrow's played this season, 40 plus touchdown passes, breaking his own records, Bengals are going to find themselves, depending on what happens down the stretch, right? They would need the Broncos to lose to the Chiefs this week. They need the Bengals would need to win, and they would need the Dolphins to lose to the Jets. As crazy as that sounds, all things that could potentially possibly happen. All things that could happen. But the conversation is Joe Burrow an MVP? Should Joe Burrow be the MVP? One thing I'll say, Parker, before I get your opinion on this, is to me, I think that Joe Burrow separated himself this season, as well as Jamar Chase. I think the best quarterback in the National Football League resides in Cincinnati, and the best wide receiver in the National Football League resides in Cincinnati. That's a very damn good spot to be in, regardless of what people are crowning you or decide not to crown you. That's a cool spot to be in. But Parker, what say you?
Yeah, it's so weird to me how it feels like the perception. Maybe you've heard different things, but it feels like it's a situation where if the Bengals even make it to the wild card round of the playoffs, Joe Burrow wins the MVP vote from a majority of the country. People will be okay with that. But if he doesn't make it, then they're like, "Oh, we'll slot him in. He can compete for that comeback player of the year spot. We'll just be okay with that." How does one win theoretically sway it that far, right? Those are two very different awards that both have their own, positives with them. But I mean, from MVP to any other award, even if it was Offensive Player of the Year, it feels like a weird conversation over one win when I feel like all season a majority of people talk about how wins are not a QB stat, right? It's the whole well, the quarterback can't be responsible for every win and loss. That's just not how it works. But then you have the conversation of, well, our quarterback's winning, so our quarterback's clearly better than the quarterback that isn't winning. When that purely doesn't necessarily have to be the case when you look at it on paper. And so it's where, are we going to value the paper stats? Are we going to value what we're seeing on the field while he's playing game to game? Because I think you'd be hard pressed to find many people around, NFL media or even the country and just fan bases that will say Joe Burrow hasn't added. I mean, if they beat the Steelers in Week 18, I think you can confidently say Joe Burrow's added at least a minimum of 5 wins to this team this season. Yeah, I think this team, the way they've played without him, would have been a 3-4 win team. Honestly, max. I don't see them doing much better than that because just what he's been able to do on a week-to-week basis and what he's been able to do for this team all season long. I don't think you can go around the league and find many other players that are doing that from an independent standpoint. You can say, oh, well, he has the receivers, he has these weapons. Sure. You have a guy like T. Higgins that's missed He's missed 6 games, 7 games this year. You have a guy like Jamar Chase who every single team they play is focusing on. So yeah, Jamar Chase is the top receiver. He's going for the Triple Crown right now. But is that enough to just completely discount how good of a quarterback Joe Burrow's had to be with what's been around him? But then you're going to look at guys like Saquon Barkley, who has, one of the highest in the league yards before contact number of any single running back in the league. And yeah, he's going for the rushing record. That's great. But he's, again, had those weapons around him to help him do that. You have a guy like Josh Allen, who's got a very, very, very stout offensive line in front of him. He has the time to go make things happen out there. Where Joe Burrow, yeah, he's got a fun supporting cast, but really it's Jamar Chase, it's half of T. Higgins, and it's Chase Brown when Zach Taylor decides to use them. That's really the weapons that are around him. The offensive line is hit or miss. They've been through injury hell this season. It's felt like they've been down 4 guys at one point, I think, overall on the team. And so I just, the stuff that's going on in Cincinnati around Joe Burrow makes him more valuable than any of these other players. I think if you swap players out, try and do that comparison game, I think Joe Burrow wins that conversation every single time. And that's why I think the conversation around the MVP, I mean, I know maybe we're a little more biased as we watch him every week. We're rooting for the guy, but I just think it's hard to say that anybody's had a more impressive individual effort this season than Joe Burrow.
I agree with you. Park, man. One thing's for sure, man. Bengals play Saturday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is going to be a must-win game. Literally, we talk about Bengals potentially making the playoffs. In my opinion, they've been in the playoffs the last couple of weeks. They've needed to win these games. I mean, that is what the playoffs is, right? It's win or go home. But right now, what they're fighting for is the chance to win or go home in the big, for the chance to win the big dance. Right now, the Bengals are fighting for a chance to get into the playoffs. I mean, are they going to be able to keep it up? Are they going to keep this hot streak going? We'll figure that out on Saturday, 8 p.m. Park, I want to thank you so much for spending your time, man, with me, joining me, man. And I'm looking forward to talking ball with you again next week, man. I hope that you have a happy New Year's Eve tonight, man. I hope that it's a great time for you, your family. And I'm looking forward to talking ball with you again next week, my man.
You know, man, don't party too hard out there without me, man. Have a happy New Year's, man. I'm excited to talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir, brother. I'll talk to you, my man.
Y'all take it easy.
You as well. That was Parker Blake. Make sure you guys give him a follow all on social media. His handles are down below in the description. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from TWSN Studios. Hey, listen, D'Angelo Russell got traded from the Lakers. D'Angelo Russell gets traded from the Lakers, and I think Lakers Nation rejoiced, right? Lakers Nation rejoiced because D'Angelo Russell is finally off their roster. What the Lakers were able to get back, right, was interesting to me. Dorian Finney-Smith, Shake Milton. It makes me think a little bit because Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy that the Lakers tried to get last season. And while D'Lo was extremely sporadic, some games he showed up, some games he just was never there. It makes me wonder a little bit. You guys could chime in the comment section if you want. Did the Lakers sell themselves short a little bit for what they could have gotten? I like what Dorian Finney-Smith adds to this team. It adds another consistent big man, and he's a guy that is consistent in this league. Trust and believe that. He's a great compliment to a LeBron James, especially when they look to spell him. But now you've got Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, Jared Vanderbilt when he gets back. Are you overloaded in that position? I just like sort of the versatility that D'Lo sort of brought. I agree with trading him. I just wonder if you could have wrote it out a little bit and got something a little bit more helpful to your team. Is that a spot where I felt like they could have gotten more for D'Angelo Russell, even if you were willing to part ways with the 2028 first round pick, if you're the Lakers spot. But obviously JJ Redick saw it how he saw it. I don't know if this move makes the Lakers any different. Certainly helps him out on defense. I will say that. Certainly gives him another rebounder. You get a guy in, Dorian Finney-Smith that's currently shooting the best he has percentage-wise behind the arc at the three-point line, So maybe you get that added to the game. I'm curious to see how this looks. They play the Cavaliers tonight in a big game, right? I expect LeBron also to have a huge game. I haven't even touched on that a little bit, but I expect LeBron James to have a huge game in that game tonight. But I don't know. I don't know if Dorian Finney-Smith moves the needle for me a little bit. I think that it puts me in a spot where I'm like, okay, I got to see it play out because I don't know how you're going to allocate those minutes, right? What happens is LeBron James move more to a point forward role while you get guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt when he does officially come back. Do you get those guys more looks and you move LeBron to that point forward role, right? Maybe Gabe Vincent even takes on an even larger role for this team. Maybe Austin Reeves really goes out there, runs the second unit. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see them toy with this roster and see how they can make it look here down the stretch. If you guys could do me a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live. And I didn't even touch on it, Marissa. I can't believe I didn't say anything. I'm curious to see if this stint with New York, with Brooklyn, is going to last with D'Lo. Are they willing to build around D'Lo, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, or is D'Lo just a move to get Dorian Finney-Smith onto a potential contender? Right? I think I got to figure out to see how they're planning to utilize him. But I want to move on over to the right bet, Marissa. I want to move over to the right bet and get some of my favorite bets for today's game. Just so you guys know, I'm cooking this up live right now on the show, so bear with me. You got my Boston Celtics taking on the Toronto Raptors tonight. A couple plays that there is to like in that game. I like Jason Tatum to hit 4 threes, sitting at -115. That is a play that I really, really like. While Scotty Barnes will be the person guarding him, I just don't think Scotty has a I don't think Scotty has an answer for Jason Tatum, and I expect Jason Tatum to be able to get his 3-point shot going. I think it's a big Jason Tatum night. I think Jason Tatum scores 25 points. That's sitting at -175. That's a play that you'd like to go with. I'm going to see what the prop bets are. A person I really, really like tonight's game because of the mismatch is Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, seeing his props are usually typically on the lower side. Yeah. So you could get Kristaps Porzingis has 16.5 points tonight against the Raptors. I struggle with that a little bit because I don't know if Jason Tatum, I think Jason Tatum is going to be in a much more of a scorer's mentality tonight. I like Kristaps more around the 15-point mark if you can get that on your respective sports book. If you want to get Kristaps Porzingis to 15 points, it's -170. I think that's a great way to go. I think that's a great parlay addition for me. For the Lakers versus the Cavaliers game tonight, I kind of touched on that a little bit, how I expect LeBron to have a big game. You know, LeBron did it a couple times this year. Marissa, I can't believe I'm saying this. A prop that I would sprinkle a little bit money on tonight is LeBron James to have a triple-double. LeBron James to have a triple-double. He's playing against his team, right? The team that he helped basically build in the Cavaliers. Yesterday was his 40th birthday. I expect LeBron to go out and have a big game in that regard. If you were to sprinkle a little bit on LeBron James to have a triple-double, it's sitting at +600. Hell, if you want to say LeBron James is going to have a double-double, it's sitting at -140. But LeBron James has had a triple-double a crap ton this season, and it's the way that they utilize him. And with D'Lo not in the fold, I expect him to kind of get that a little bit easier because he's going to be the primary ball handler, right? Obviously, you're still going to rely on Austin Reeves, but this is going to be largely dominated by a LeBron James, and I like LeBron James to get a triple-double tonight. I also think that LeBron James is I think his points sitting at 23.5 is easy money. I think LeBron's going to have 25, 27 points, something like that. And that's sitting at -118. So expect a big night from LeBron James in a big way. I want to see what they have his rebounds at. Sitting at 7.5. So, you know, that's usually the prop that I usually always used to go with, LeBron James over 7.5 rebounds, prop that I like for this game. You're obviously going to have a lot of guys on the Cavaliers side that are going to be able to do some damage on the boards with Jared Allen, obviously. I mean, not Jared Allen, but Evan Mobley. I like Jared Allen, but Jared Allen he's kind of been spotty recently when it comes to that. You know, is he going to show up, especially with the matchup like against AD? Is he going to be more focused on trying to slow that guy down and get him off the board? I want to know what Donovan Mitchell's points is at 22.5. Crush that line. He's going to hit that. As much as I think that the Lakers going to have a big night, LeBron's going to have a big night, there's not anybody on the Lakers that can guard him, in my honest opinion. I think Donovan Mitchell scores 30+ tonight on the Lakers, in my honest opinion. And if you want to get Donovan Mitchell to score 30 points, if you believe what I'm saying, it's about +340. It's a spot that I like. I think it's a smooth spot, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Hey, listen, I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. Listen, I hope that all of y'all enjoy your New Year's with your family, with your friends. I hope that you have a lot of fun, man. I really do. We'll be back for the show on Friday. Back on the show on Friday as we'll break all things down, getting you all squared up for the last week, regular season week of the NFL, as well as the head coaching cycle. Remember, next Monday is Black Monday. So I'll be doing a live special for that in the evening. As we start to come to a close with the morning shows, I want to thank you all for tuning in, obviously, week in and week out, day in and day out, and being a part of our daily routine. We still got a couple more shows to get through, but as we start to look ahead to year 2, we want to thank you guys so much for just accepting us in and allowing us to bring a different style of morning show to you. We'll be back live on Wednesday for State of the Jungle. Me and the guys will be back for the first time in 2 weeks, and we'll be getting y'all geared up for Bengals versus Pittsburgh Steelers in a must-win situation, and I can't wait for it. Listen, enjoy your New Year's Eve, enjoy your New Year's Day, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday morning for another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, having the conversation, getting into the dialogue, and that is the right way.
All they ever do is win, so kick that